Hey guys, Sarah here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing the best and worst of all of the Ecotools brushes that I have tried. There are a lot of them, so if you are interested in hearing the ones that I use every single day and the ones that I've tried once and have not touched since, then keep watching. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe before you leave so you don't miss any of my future videos. All right, let's get into it. So as you could see from this box, I have a lot of Ecotools brushes, like a lot. They're just like never ending. So I'm gonna go through one by one, talk about the ones that I absolutely adore, and I also will throw some clips in of me applying my makeup today using the ones that I use on a daily basis, or just some of them in general. Also, after I talk about all of these brushes, I will share my top 5 favorites of brushes that I just feel like you absolutely need if you're going to buy Ecotools brushes. So that will be after I talk through the pros and cons and talk about every brush. The first one is this brush. I actually have 2 of them. This is the full powder brush, which actually I may as well just talk about the sheer powder brush as well, because I don't know, they're both the powder brushes. So I have 2 of the sheer powder and 2 of the full powder, and I am obsessed with both of these. So the biggest difference between these is that the full powder brush is going to give you a lot more color payoff. So if you want to like really pack on a product, you can use this. I like to use this one for bronzer. It's a really good size and shape for bronzer. It's just a round brush. It has a lot of bristles. They're densely packed, but not so densely packed that it's not soft. But compared to the sheer powder brush, these ones are a little bit less densely packed, as you can see. So the sheer powder brush is going to give you more of a lighter diffused wash of color, and the full powder brush is going to give you more color payoff. I use both of them all the time. At first when I got both of them, I was using the full powder brush almost exclusively, and now I'm using the sheer powder brush way more. So, I mean, it just depends. I used the sheer powder brush today to apply my bronzer so I could show it to you guys. It really does just have such a good shape and size to it to apply bronzer. So I do really love this one. And then the sheer powder brush I used today to apply my powder. And this is a really good one to set your entire face with since it's a good size. It's also really good to bronze up with, which is awesome. I will say that I don't like using the full powder brush for actual powder because I feel like it adds too much product and then I look kind of cakey. Also, I'm going to try to find all of these online. I will link them down below. I know some of them come in sets of 2 brushes or even 3 brushes. So bear with me because I don't know off the top of my head which ones come in which sets. So I will do my absolute best to link everything below. Okay, next is this little trio of brushes. They're all essentially the same brush. They come in this like blush pink packaging. The handles are, and then the tops of them are all the flat top style. They're all very densely packed, and basically they're all the same shape. The biggest difference is just the size and then the length of the bristles. So I will say that I think that the medium one is the one that has the like softest, most flexible bristles. The biggest one is so densely packed that it's pretty, I don't know, it's just like not very movable and flexible. And then the small one is pretty flexible. I will say that I tried applying my foundation with this brush and I hated it. Like, I have not used this since. I have no desire to use this. I just felt like it was too stiff to like blend anything in. It just felt like it was moving stuff around my face and I didn't like that. I tried the medium one and it was better. It's still not my favorite. I personally like, let me see if I can find it. This one, it's the F80 from Sigma. This is my favorite brush to apply foundation with, and I think it's just because it's a little bit more flexible and has a little bit more movement. So these bristles just don't move enough for me to like buff it into my skin. So, and then this one, I have tried using it for concealer and I don't wear concealer on a daily basis anyway, so I don't really have a use for it. And if I'm going to use concealer, I'm going to use a sponge. So this trio in general, I'm not a fan of like this collection of their brushes. Okay, their sponge is my all-time favorite sponge ever. I use it every single day. I like it better than the Beauty Blender. So this is it wet. It's the pink one that was in like a holiday set. And then this is what it looks like if it's dry. So it just has this flat edge, and then it's round. And obviously it does get bigger when it is wet. I love this so much. It's like the perfect amount of bounciness. It doesn't soak up all of your product, but it still blends everything beautifully. Like if you get one product from Ecotools, do yourself a favor and pick up this sponge. It is just amazing. I can't find it right now. I think I actually have a backup of the sponge, and it comes in a set with this like mini sponge that I think is supposed to be used for concealer. I do not like that sponge. I actually tried it for concealer and just like detail work. I just personally don't use that. If I want to use this in like a smaller crevice, I just kind of like crumple it up with my hand and then make it smaller that way. I don't like the smaller sponges. I know the Beauty Blender came out with smaller ones as well. I'm just not a fan of those, but just so that you know, the package does come with the big one and the small one. Next up is this brush. This is the Bronze Buki, and I was super excited to try this out. The bristles are just so nice and fluffy and long, and it's a gigantic brush. And I think I would like this if it was on an actual handle. I don't like Kabuki style brushes like this. Or you know what? I would probably like it if I was right-handed, because I'm trying to hold on to it and like it's not comfortable for me to hold on to because I have it in my left hand. But if it was in my right hand, it would actually be much more comfortable. Lefties just get the short end of the stick. So it's flat on one side, which is, I should have shown you guys that, and then curved on the other. So if it's in your right hand, it sits right against your thumb and is really comfortable to apply. But if I sit it against my thumb this way, it's like the opposite way, like the way that it should be. So for me to hold it to be the way that I would want it to be in the direction, it's like this awkward holding. Anyway, I like the actual shape, the density, the brush, everything about it. I just don't like the handle and how I have to hold it. I never found a good way to hold it, so I just didn't. I've used it a couple times. I've tried to like it because I just think the actual, like from here up, the bristles are spectacular and amazing, but the actual like part that you hold on to for me personally is a pass. So this is another one I have. This is called the Contour Buki, and this for me is kind of the same thing. I love the shape of this. It's an angled brush, so it does go up. The bristles are so unbelievably soft, and this is just such a good size, shape, everything. But I don't like that it doesn't have a handle. I think I'm just like a handle brush kind of girl. I actually think that I would use this more for blush than I would for contour or bronzing. I really love an angled blush brush. So this one would be better for me if it had a handle. This is the Precision Blush Brush. And let me pull out the other one. So this is the other blush brush I have from them, which is the Full Blush Brush. So these really, the only difference is the size. The Precision Blush Brush is smaller. The Full Blush Brush is a little bit larger. But both of them have kind of the same length bristles and the same density and all of that. I like the Full Blush Brush better just because the Precision one, I feel like I could put it onto my the apples of my cheeks, and then I don't get the diffused look that I want. Like, it's too precise for me, I think. I like just a slightly bigger one that I don't have to worry about hitting the whole cheek right in one little swoop. So if you want to pick up a blush brush, I would say the Full Blush Brush is where I personally would want to go. I have two of these. These are the blending and bronzing brushes, and these are dual fiber brushes. So they're rounded, they're pretty soft, and they're really big. So I like how soft they are. I just personally don't really use dual fiber brushes, and not for any reason. I don't know. I just feel like I have other brushes that I like more. As far as this goes, I do think that it's nice. I've tried it out quite a few times. Obviously I have two of them. So I have tried it out and I like it, but I think that for bronzer and stuff like that, I personally like the sheer and the full powder brushes better. Okay, let's talk about a few buffing brushes. So I have the base buffer, the complexion buffer, and then the seamless buffer. So these are the three. And this one, which is the base buffer, this is the smallest one. This one is the complexion buffer. And then the seamless buffer has just this other material, these other bristles in the middle. And the biggest difference, so the seamless buffer has the different bristles in the middle. They're super, super soft. And this actually feels really good to apply your makeup. It is an angled brush, and I think that's the part that I don't really like when I'm applying my makeup. I did enjoy this one. These are way better than that pink collection, in my personal opinion. This is the complexion buffer, and this one is the one that's comparable to the F80 from Sigma. The biggest difference for this one is that it's smaller than the F80. The actual area that it hits on your face is smaller, not by a ton, but I'm all about that efficiency. That's why I use a sponge. Like, I'd much rather use a sponge any day of the week than a brush to apply my makeup. But I think that this blends beautifully. If you are a brush kind of girl, I would go for this one out of all of their buffing brushes, way before the pink ones and even before both of these buffing brushes. So this one is the base buffer. This one is even smaller. It has those rounded edges, and I've realized that I think I like just the flat top without the rounded edges better. So that's that, and then this one is the angled one with the two different kinds of bristles. So out of these three buffers, this one, which is again the complexion buffer. I'm sorry if you guys can hear my neighbors revving their engines in the driveway next door. It's the story of my life. Filming must go on, so that's that. Okay, next I have these three brushes, which are all semi-similar. So I have so this is the Skin Perfecting, this is the Cover Complexion, and this is the Wonder Color Finish. So I am a big believer that you can use brushes for whatever the heck you want to use them for. I don't use brushes for what they're intended for all of the time. So all of these are more like oval shaped. And I've noticed that this one, which is the Wonder Cover Complexion, I would never use this for coverage on my face, but it's really good for contour. So this one, actually all three of them are good for contour, but I've noticed that this one in particular, because it is bigger and it's not angled, the bristles are really precise. If you want to like really get the perfect contour, this is the brush for you. It fits right in there. It's not gonna move the product all around because the bristles are so short on it. It is like amazing for contour. And these two, I mean, look, if you want to use a small brush like this to do your entire face of foundation, you do you, girl. I support you. I personally do not have the patience for that, so I would never think about using any of these brushes for that. I think you could get away with using this one, which is the Wonder Color Finish. I don't even know what that means. Like, what is this for? I don't know what it's actually even for, but I would use it for contour. It's a little bit smaller than this one, so I'd probably pass. I didn't really use this one. I've used it once. I tried it. It was fine. I just don't have a use for it in my collection personally. And then this one is the Skin Perfecting, which again, it's this angled brush. I think it is good for contour if you want. This would give you a little bit more of a diffused look because the bristles of this one are slightly longer than they are of this one. So these two are good for contouring. You don't need both of them by any sense of the imagination. One or the other would do the trick. And with that being said, this is the Define brush. This has become my holy grail contouring brush. So I know we just talked about contouring brushes, but if you're gonna get one contouring brush, get this one. I love the tapered shape of this one. It's actually the same shape as the full powder brush. It's just obviously a different size. So here's what we're looking at. So this is the full powder, this is the Define. Both of them are just the perfect shape, but this one, since it's smaller, it will fit right in there. And I like that it's tapered because you can put the point of it where you want it, and then the tapered bristles on the sides that are a little bit shorter will help diffuse the color. So it's going to give you a nice diffused, really gorgeous, natural look. So this has become my absolute holy grail. Before that, I had been using this, which is my Hourglass Veil powder brush, and I still love this. Do not get me wrong, I love this. But this one is $64 and this one is a set of 2 for I think $9. So if you're gonna get one or the other, get this one. They're definitely not exactly the same. The Hourglass one is much smaller, but for all intents and purposes, this is the one that I've been using lately. Basically, since I got it, this is what I've been using for my contour, and I haven't even picked up my Hourglass brush, which is saying a lot because that's like a luxury brush and this is a drugstore brush. And then the last complexion brush is this one. It is the highlight brush. It is a fan brush. I do really like this. I don't really use a fan brush that often. I guess this is a face brush too. This is the Precision Highlight. So I use the Luxie 522, which is this brush, every day for highlight. I haven't even been wearing highlight lately. I don't know what I'm talking about. When I'm wearing highlight, this is the brush I use. So the Precision Highlight is closer to it, and I have used this one. The thing that I don't like about the Precision Highlight is that it's a little bit more densely packed than the Luxie brush is. So it just packs on color a little bit more heavily, and if you're going for a natural look, you're gonna have to be very careful with this brush. But it does really do the trick. I like the shape of it way better. And I just feel like if I have a fan brush, I lose control too quickly. I did use this today for my highlights so you can see it in action. And I do think it's a great, great fan brush. Just for me personally, I like this shape of a brush better. Oh my gosh, I've been talking for way too long and we are now just getting into the eye brushes. Luckily, I don't have as many eye brushes. So here's the eye brush situation. And actually a couple of these aren't even eye brushes. So I guess we can address that first. This is the Classic Concealer and Foundation Applicator brushes. What I will say about this is I don't use these kinds of brushes. I did use this one. It looks like I didn't wash it after I used it with foundation, so it's a little bit stiff right now. I like these brushes for masks. I actually used one in my stories the other day. I have 2 of these. The other one is in my mask box in my bathroom. But I really like these with masks that are in tubs like this because you can just dip in, apply it onto your skin, and then wash it, and you don't keep dipping your fingers in here. Even if you wash your hands, it's still just not the most sanitary thing ever to be dipping in and out of a tub with your fingers. So I like to use a brush for that, and then I can just wash it afterwards and move on with life. This small one, I have applied foundation with it before, and I've applied foundation with these ones too. It's not my favorite, it's not my least favorite, it's whatever. I just personally would rather use them for masking. This is the Controlled Setting Brush. I didn't even realize this was in here. I totally forgot about this brush. I've used this one for highlight. I have not used this to set anything, although I do think it would be good to set your concealer down. I don't really wear concealer on a daily basis, so I don't feel the need to set my under eyes, but this is, when I did wear concealer all the time, this is like the perfect size and shape that I would use. I personally like this better for highlight though. Like I said before, you can use brushes for anything you want to use them for. If it says it's a highlight brush, use it for whatever you want. Foundation, freaking eyeshadow if you want. Like, do whatever you want with your brushes. You can also use brushes for multiple things. Like, you can use your powder brush for your bronzer and your blush as well. There are no rules, so do whatever you want to do. This says it's a setting brush. I do not use it to set. Actually, I wasn't even using this. I totally forgot that this brush honestly even existed. I think it was in with my eye brushes and I just forgot about it. And then this one is the Correcting Brush. In full transparency, I have never used this brush before because I don't know what I would possibly use this for. So it's an angled brush. It has short bristles. It's, I don't know, it's like pretty densely packed. I'm not applying, I'm not really spot concealing, I'm not doing any of that, so I don't really have a use for this one. So if you do, and you like do color correcting or anything like that, this brush might be really good for that. I personally just don't have a use for it. In full transparency, I love Ecotools Complexion brushes 1,000 times more than I like their eye brushes. There's not a single one of these eye brushes that I reach for on a daily basis. So I'm gonna show you the brushes that I use today. This is the Defined Crease. And it's just a big fluffy brush. It's a little bit denser and stiffer than I personally like. So this is that, and then this one is a dual-ended, it's called the Shade and Define brush. And I think the shader side is fine. I could apply my eyeshadow with this, like all over the lid. This side is kind of like an angled brush, but kind of not. And for me personally, this is a little bit too thick. It looks really thin, but it's not as thin as it seems. Which, speaking of, this one is the angled liner brush, and this one is really thick too. Let me just show you guys the angled liner brush that I use. Okay, let's see if we can get this to focus. So, this one, okay, this is the one that I use all the time. This is the one in the dual-ended brush, and then this is just the angled liner brush. Can you see the difference there? I'm hoping that the camera is showing you guys the difference of them, because, I mean, their angled liner brush is at least twice as thick as the brush that I use, which is insane. So, and I'm saying that because if you're doing a liner, if you're lining your eyes, I don't want a thick line, because I can still get a thick line with a very thin brush, but as soon as you put this thick brush, if you mess up a little bit, you're putting on full-on eyeshadow with black eyeliner. It's not going to be cute. So I like a very, very thin brush so that I have room to make the mistakes I'm inevitably going to make. This is their spoolie. I do like this. I don't use it all that often, just because if I am using a spoolie, I use this one that I already have soap all over to do soap brows. But this spoolie is fine. I'm pretty sure this came in a set with something else, but I will have all of it linked down below based on what it comes with. But this is a good one to have in your collection if you are in need of a spoolie. And then these are the last two brushes. So this one is the Blend and Smudge. And this is actually maybe my favorite of the eye brushes. I used the blend side today to just put a color in my crease really quickly. This one's not as good. The smudge side is pretty good. It's just a short little brush that you can smudge a eyeshadow on under your lower lash line to blend out a color. And this is the one that I used in my crease today. This again is not as flexible as I would like it to be, or not as fluffy as I want it to be, but it's good for more defined colors. And then lastly, this is the Airbrush and Define brush. This actually might be a face brush in their eyes. I'm not exactly sure, but this side is like a duo fiber brush. It actually probably is for your eyes, just like airbrushing a color out. And then this is a teeny tiny brush. So this one I just don't really have any use for either. I don't think I've ever used this brush. So there are a couple in here that I haven't used, but I do just want to say, I mean, I know it's really easy to look at brushes and see a set and it's like $7 or something, but if you're only going to use one of them, is it worth it? So I just wanted to share some of the ones, even if I haven't used them, just to kind of share if I think it's worth it or not. Like this brush I will probably never use, so if it was in a set with another one and I could get a different set with other brushes I would be more likely to use, I would go for that instead. Okay, now that I have talked your ear off for eternity, I want to just go through my top 5 brushes from Ecotools. So if you are going to buy anything from Ecotools, here are the 5 brushes I highly, highly recommend. First of all, the sponge. If you get anything, this is hands down my absolute favorite thing from Ecotools is their Complexion sponge. It is absolutely amazing. Do not sleep on this. It is so good. So that is number 1. And then the 4 brushes are the full powder brush, so good for bronzer. You could apply powder if you wanted to. I don't normally. The sheer powder brush, this I really love because this is a good multitasking brush. You can set your entire face with powder, you can bronze up, and then you could even apply blush with it. So if you're looking for a good multitasking brush, or if you're just in the market for, if you don't have brushes or anything like that, this is a really, really good brush for beginners, but it's also an amazing brush if you're advanced and want to add a really good blush brush into your collection. The Define brush is hands down my favorite contour brush right now. I think it's so good. The shape, the size, the density, all of it is just outstanding. And then the blush brush. This is the full blush brush. This one is just really good to pop that color onto your cheeks. You actually could contour with it as well. And it's a little bit small compared to the sheer powder brush, but you could bronze your face with this if you wanted to. So this would be another good multitasking brush. Alrighty guys, you just listened to me chat for eternity. So I hope that this video was helpful for you and it kind of gave you some insight into where to start with Ecotools, or it kind of steered you in a direction of where you should be going. So yeah, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe before you leave so you don't miss any of my future videos, and I will see you guys in my next one. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.